you hate the thought of working past 55 or 60? Do you hate not being able to live the life you deserve today? Do you hate not knowing what your financial future looks like? It's time to stop doing what you hate. Here's your host, Mr. Harold Green.
Hello, everybody. This is Harold Green of Bright Tree Financial Group, and it is time to stop doing what you hate. I hope you are having a fantastic day today. I think I'm doing okay. As I say always, it's a pleasure and an honor and a true blessing to be sitting here sharing with you the things that God has put in my heart to share with you from my experience base, from my knowledge base, from my emotional base. I put it all out there. As I said before, I lead with this. I succeed with this. And today's show is going to be it's an emotional show. And we're going to be tackling one of the things that a lot of people have to deal with on a day in and day out basis. And it breaks my heart when I see people go through things like this. A lot of this stuff is extremely avoidable, but the Bible says my people perish and suffer for a lack of knowledge. And I've come to the realization again this week that I am not Superman. I'm not a superhero. I cannot save the world, but, if I can make an impact on a handful of people's lives, they in turn can make an impact on a handful of people's lives themselves. There's a multiplier effect. So I'm going to challenge you today that what you hear from me, I want you to share it with other people. Let them, tell them to tune into the show and hear this stuff, because people don't have to suffer for lack of knowledge. They just don't. If you educate yourself the right way with the right things, you'll be fine. So today's show is titled Avoiding Economic Trauma. And I'll tell you the definition of it in a second, but I'll share something with you that happened to me when I was a kid. I have a very creative mind, and I used to be so creative that it was either a blessing or a curse. One day, it became a curse. And so my grandma, bless her heart, and I don't know if I shared this story with you guys before, but if I did share it with you before, please forgive me for being repetitive, but I think it probably bears repeating. Just kind of show you something here. When I was a kid, I think I was probably in 4th grade or 5th grade or something like that. My grandma had bought me and my brother Joe a pair of cowboy boots, right? Cowboy boots. And man, we were so excited to get them cowboy boots. We got them for Christmas, I think. And, we lived in the city at the time. We had moved from the country to the city. And we were living in project housing, Section 8, whatever. We wasn't rich. And everybody know that. And so me and my brother we were playing like Kung Fu games and like Bruce Lee. And so we were like, cowboy boots, man, if you kick somebody with a pair of cowboy boots, man, that hurts. So me and my brother, we were like jump kicking at each other with our cowboy boots on. And my brother moved and I landed into the wall and I tore a big hole in the wall because I was coming at him pretty hard with a flying jump kick. I could move pretty good back then as a kid. So I wasn't always overweight, but kicked a hole in the wall. And man, so we're like, okay, we just knew that one of us was going to die that day. Because when my mom found out somebody was getting killed, if that's the word we use, somebody was getting killed back then. And so I was like, okay, I tell you what, no, we lived in the 2nd story of a walk-up. And basically, there's no way you could scale that wall because it was just like a flat brick wall. So I wrote a note and I told my mom, I said, okay, so I made up the story that somebody climbed up the wall. They broke in the window. They came through the window, and they threatened to kill us all, right? And my mom got scared, and so my mom, she went down to the police station, and she called the cops, and the cops came and so they're asking me what happened and stuff, and that was my real first experience with law enforcement. I mean, they came hard. So anyway, they started looking for the guy and stuff, and I just sent everybody on a wild goose chase. This is how creative my mind was back then, even as a kid. So anyway, the cops, I could tell they started to sense something, and they knew I was lying. So what they did is they had my mom bring us down to the police station, like to see if we can ID people or whatnot, like stuff like that. And then they had me do a handwriting sample. And then when they realized that it was my handwriting and they told my mom what happened, man, I got home and I was like, I got in trouble. But one of the funny things is when my family, every time we get together, we tell that story. It was a scary thing back then, but it was just something that we were just able to share and just kind of laugh at, right? But that creativity, right? That creativity, I now use that same creativity because I believe that God gives us all a gift. And we just have to figure out how to hone that gift and train that gift and turn it into something that's going to benefit not only us, but humanity. So are you ready? 1, 2, 3, let's get it. Economic trauma, a sustained, stressful impact or emotional pain of one's experience with lack of financial opportunities and poverty. The Bible says God has given us the power to get wealth. There's a lot of conflicting headlines out there that we see in the marketplace. And I'm an investment advisor, investment manager, and I built this program called Rapid Retire, which you guys have heard about before. But if you haven't, go check me out on the website, brightfg.com. Check out the Rapid Retire financial planning process, and then get in touch with me if you're interested in that. But we're sitting here in October, and September, I'll give you a little bit of a market recap, and I'll put this out there. Investments do carry risk of loss, right? Past performance is no indicator of future results. If you're going to invest money, go do your own due diligence and make sure you understand what you are getting yourself into. Speak with a professional, get a professional risk assessment done. A lot of this is free. People will meet with you for free and they will talk with you for free and they'll let you know where you are. And then if you want to move forward with them, you can. But at least you have a professional's opinion and not something that you heard on TV. And I'm I'm all about getting knowledge. But when I'm being gaslit, I really, really, really get hot and bothered about being gaslit, especially being gaslit in the financial markets. And I believe this is where a lot of economic trauma comes from that people are suffering these days is because of actions that they take based on information that they hear in social media and other places that are out there. So let's get into this real quick. Economic trauma. And some of the causes of economic trauma, they vary. And then some of the results of economic trauma could be things like, losing a job, being kicked out of your place, homeless, whatever that might be. And you may say, well, that'll never happen to me. I'm not talking about everybody. This just happens to some people, but it happens to enough of the people out there that this needs to be addressed. And one of the things that you can do is create a financial plan and stick to that financial plan and then make sure you have the right people on your team to help with that. I've suffered a lot of economic trauma in my life, from being in business and losing pretty much everything to growing up poor as a kid, not having much. And, one of the symptoms of money trauma is money avoidance, right? So many people, because they've had bad experiences about money, they never, how can I say this? They never conquer it. They never get over it. They never beat the monster. They don't want to create a budget. They don't pay their bills on time. And it just leads to a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger situation. Now, we talked about the series, Get the Money, Keep the Money. And this is one of those things that would prevent a person from getting money and then staying in a state of financial turmoil, economic turmoil, things like that. So I'm going to go through here real quick and just kind of talk about some things that you can do to avoid economic trauma. Now, this is going to be addressed to parents who have children. One of the biggest things that you can do to help your future, to help your child, is to sit them down early on and teach them good money habits and good money principles, right? Because again, if you have a financial plan, what happens is you can begin to talk to your children about the financial plan. Some people say, well, I don't want to talk to my kids about money because I don't want them knowing how much I have, and I don't want them thinking this and that and the other, and that's it. That's all fine, but there's a way to talk to your kids. Like one of the things that we did early on with our kids is we told them that, hey, look, this is the amount of money that we are going to give you to help pay for college. This is it. Based on our plan, this is what we're going to give you. It was never about what we could afford or what we couldn't afford or anything like that, because I wanted them to use the creativity that they had in their mind that, okay, mom and dad, we're going to get X number of dollars for college. If I want to go somewhere more expensive than that, then how do I get it paid for? How do I get college paid for without coming out of college owing $2, $3, $400,000 for my degree, right? And that's one of the other things that will cause people economic trauma as well, is coming out of college in a buttload of debt. I think they did a survey, man, and it was about 2/3 of the people said they're not going to start repaying their student loans. 2/3? Like, who told you that college is a right? College is not a right. College is a choice. You don't have a right to go to college. College is a choice. And if you go to college and you took on all this debt with no plan on how you're going to pay it back, to me, that's a sign of, I don't know what you call it. I guess you call it money avoidance, economic avoidance, or, the Peter Pan syndrome, or whatever you call it. Not totally being responsible for what it is that you're about to embark on. Well, and I blame the parents. Honestly, I blame parents all the time for this, because when the kids are young, they're impressionable, and then parents can talk to them while they still have their ear. If you tell your kids things like this while you still have their ear, your children are not your friends. We are responsible for raising our kids. And I see too many people paying too much for college. The kids come out of college in debt. Everybody's in a money mess. Everybody's in a money mess. Now our country is in, for the most part, a money mess. Forgiving student loans is one thing, but I understand for some people, but honestly, I really don't understand forgiving loans for anybody. I don't think that should be the way it goes. I think there should be programs out there that you can work with to help you get your student loans paid off for a service that you provide. In return, there should be some sort of equal economic exchange, equal beneficial exchange. Because once you set the precedent, it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle. And I've seen many parents take on student loans, parent loans, where that kid had no business at that school at all. But because of some sort of family situation or whatnot, the parents felt that they owed it to the kid because of how they raised them. Maybe they weren't good parents, and now they're trying to atone. I think one of the worst things you can do is try to atone for mistakes that you've made in the past unnecessarily. I think you can go back and apologize for those things, but to say, okay, now I'm just going to open up my wallet, take on loans, and do all these crazy things because, I wasn't a good parent, but I want to try to make it right. Look, you need a plan. And one of the biggest things that will cause you economic trauma is mental instability. And if you're suffering from something mental, I advise you to seek out a professional who can talk you through these things. Because money is one of the things that causes many people a lot of problems. But what causes money problems is mental problems as well. How you think about your money, how you plan. A lot of people don't plan. So therefore, they will find themselves in economic trauma time and time again. So I would encourage you, if you're out there listening to me talk to you about this, having a plan is one of the most important things you can do. Now, I want to get into something on the investment world that causes a lot of mental instability. And the world operates on two different concepts, fear and greed, right? So one of the charts I always look at is the investor sentiment chart. And this one's on CNN, and I think it's pretty cool that you can go and look at this and just kind of see what's driving the market right now. And extreme fear was driving the market last week, right? A month ago, it was neutral. A week ago, it was extreme fear. And the gauge just went out of extreme fear into fear. So people are still fearful out there. And one of the things I saw was a survey that showed out of all the people selling out of the market in September, a lot of those people were millennial people, people between a certain age. The people that didn't sell or sold the least were boomers and senior citizens. And a lot of times, whenever you see your portfolio going down, if you're in control of your portfolio, I guarantee you're going to sell at the wrong time for the most part. Most people do. And that causes economic trauma. And now you're scared to get back in. You're scared. I lost money. I don't like it. Okay. I'll give you an example, right? I've been telling clients all September. And if you have listened to, my last market minute about do you need a professional, I talked to you about the coiled spring theory. And that's a concept that I use in a lot of my decision making processes when I buy a house, when I buy a car, the coiled spring theory can pretty much work with anything. It's a timing the market kind of mechanism. And you look at extreme fear, you look at greed, you look at extreme greed, you look at all these things, and it'll help you when you make your decisions. And so I've been telling clients, I say, look, I know right now the market looks bad. We are right back where we were a year ago. And it was bad. And a lot of people got traumatized. But I think what helped them through was the fact that I kept telling them that, hey, look, this is where we're going to be next year. And this is why we're making the moves that we need to make today. Because if we don't make these moves now, when things are horrible, then when things get better, that's going to be the wrong time. Because once the market has gone up 10 to 15%, it's due for a pullback of maybe 5 to 10%. So you wait because you were scared, and then you get in at the top of 10 to 15% run up, and now you have a 10 to 15 and maybe a 20% pullback. Bad timing. Bad timing. That will cause you economic trauma. Buying and selling in the market at the wrong time will cause you economic trauma. What else can cause economic trauma? Divorce. Now, I don't know how to talk about this, but I was going to do a show titled Divorce and Money. And I hate divorce for the most part, but sometimes it can be a good thing. And I've had several people come to me with this situation. I know there's more than several. I don't want to count on the hand number of people that have come to me with this, but when 50% of the marriages end in divorce, you don't build that into your financial plan. You don't get married and say, okay, all right, 10 years in, all right, we're going to call it quits. I'm going to go my way. She's going to go her way. Nobody does that. Things like this, they happen over a period of time, or they happen, all of a sudden. And a lot of the people that I work with who have gotten divorced, it has been something that has happened over a long period of time. A lot of it was about money and how the other spouse thought about money and how they handled money. Forget about love, right? Once the love part wore off, it was more about now you look at, okay, now what's left? All right, I love my wife. The honeymoon phase is gone. Now how do we do this? Like, do we put the kids in private school? Do we put them in public school? Do we buy a $300,000 house as a starter? Do we go for the $1 million house? And all of these different things. And if you don't sit down before you get married and come up with the reason why you're married in the first place, and talk about when the honeymoon phase and all that stuff wears off, and you start to gain a little weight, different things like that. I always tell people before they get married, you must understand your reason for being together in the first place. You got to understand the reason why you're getting married in the first place. Love is not enough. What is your purpose for the marriage? People don't understand. Marriage was designed for purpose, right? It was designed for purpose. And if you go and you meet up with somebody and then you guys get married and you don't understand what that purpose of you being together is for, like greater than just husband and wife, things like that, raising a family, what are you going to do together to impact the world? Things like that. I know I'm getting a little bit deep, but a lot of times when you don't have that foundation, it's going to be painful. And a lot of times I would hear a good thing that I hear about people when they get married say, well, this person motivates me. They drive me. They help me become a better me. And I do the same for them. I help them become a better who they're supposed to be. That is fantastic. Because if your spouse is not there to be your cheerleader or to motivate you and they're tearing you apart, that's not something you ought to be involved in. You're better off being alone. And I have conversations about this all the time. But a lot of times the divorce can cause economic trauma. I've seen people lose a lot in a divorce. One person was wealthy, one person was not, but because of the laws of that state, they had to pay. I've seen people paying huge amounts of child support. I've seen insane things just because some things got torn apart. But if you're married and you're going through some things like this, I would say make sure you try to get some counseling and seek out some counseling and not start telling your marital problems to your friends and your family, because a lot of times they're just going to egg you in the wrong way. They're going to go to you and just kind of, yeah, get rid of that sorry bum. He's no good. You never, what if that person is just going through a rough patch and they just need a little bit of encouragement, right? My wife's friends told her that about me before I became who I am right now, right? And that's what they said. Get rid of that bum. He's a bum. He's a, he just, he's just not doing what he's supposed to do. Life was hard for me back then. I was trying to figure this wealth thing out. I was trying to become successful. I was trying to get to the place where I knew was possible, but it just took time. And I caused a lot of economic trauma on my family. My kids they rode with me through all of this. They were right there. Every year we would take them by the places that they grew up and they're like, this place is garbage. But when they were kids, they didn't know the difference. They did not know they were poor because we did not teach our kids a poverty mentality or a poverty mindset. My children should not have economic trauma. They should not have any because I didn't raise them that way. But me and my wife, we went through it a lot. And so we did our best to kind of shield and hide that from our kids. But we never said, okay, because we raised them a certain way, now we're responsible to go and just open up our wallet and just go into gobs and gobs and gobs of debt just to kind of get them through school. Because then that sets us back. It causes us to be resentful if the things don't work out the way we thought. We paid $200,000 for college and now they changed their major and now they want to go off and do something that didn't require a college degree in the first place. That will cause mental and economic trauma. Now, the next thing that can cause you economic trauma is dealing with family members. And I've talked about this before. Not only could it cause you economic trauma, but it could also damage your marriage as well. And so you're going to have to put guardrails on a lot of these things in terms of how much you help, who you help, when you help, how you help, and what your involvement will be, because some of the stuff you can't recover. You cannot recover. The next thing is, how can I put this out there? Basically, getting bad advice from the wrong people will definitely cause you some economic trauma. And a lot of times you don't know that advice is going to be bad until you put it to the test. So one of the things that we do is we try to stress test the financial plans based on certain events and things like that, happening or whatnot. And so with you also want to make sure that you're having your financial plans and your financial strategy stress tested, because if something comes up at you at the wrong time and you didn't prepare for it, then that will also cause you some economic trauma. But, I just wanted to share this with you guys today and just kind of put some out there for food for thought. And hopefully it's helped you. Hopefully it will cause you to sit down and start to think a little bit more about your direction and what it is that you are trying to accomplish in life. And that's pretty much what I wanted to do, is give you some direction. So I want to thank you very much for tuning in today. And again, you may have to listen to the show several times. And a lot of times I do listen to my own shows 1 or 2, sometimes 3 times, because I basically needed to hear it again for myself. So thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, everybody, 1, 2, 3, let's get it.
This is the podcastfactory.com.